Well, I'm recording now, obviously, but just for bits and bobs.
Just for the bits and the bobs.
Just for the bits and the bobs. Hello and welcome to dotdotdoc. I'm Ian, your host, and I'm joined by Matt today. Hi, Matt.
Hey. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. Yeah, it's chilled. Just a chilled Sunday here, as we're recording this podcast. But today we're talking about Fyre. About Fyre Festival, the greatest party that never happened. It's a 2019 documentary that you can find on Netflix. It's a Netflix documentary directed by Chris Smith. Matt, do you know who Chris Smith is?
No.
And why he should matter to us?
Has he directed one of the pods we've covered, documentaries we've covered before?
Not yet. He's directed possibly my favourite documentary ever.
American movie?
Yeah, he directed American movie.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh.
I was like, what? That's insane, because it was like only after I was like, oh, Chris Smith, that rings a bell. Why does it ring a bell? And yeah, it's he directed American movie, and he also directed what was it? Jim and Andy, The Great Beyond.
Oh yeah. It says that at the beginning, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't see that. And he also directed
it might be on the trailer for it actually, where it says he directed that, but it doesn't bring up about American movie.
Yeah, he also directed the Madeleine McCann documentary. You know, the 8-part series. Which I thought was pretty good overall. But yeah, I was like blown away by that because American movie, incredible documentary, absolutely amazing. But we're not talking about that today. We will talk about it one day. It's like the kind of one that I'm saving because it's just. Oh, so good. What did you think of this documentary?
I thought it was good, all in all. Started watching it, because I think you'd seen it before. This was my first time watching it. And within the first sort of bit of it, I was like, I don't feel like I'm going to enjoy this documentary. I thought it was going to go down an avenue, and I was like, I feel like I'm going to be bored, but I wasn't. I really enjoyed it. Quite eye-opening to the world of influencers through the likes of Instagram and stuff like that. Yeah, really good. Quite an interesting doc.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing this pretty much the week it came out because it was one of those documentaries that I think we talked about this on the Catfish podcast, that it was a water cooler kind of documentary where it's just everybody's talking about it in my workplace, and it was just like everybody seemed to have watched it the night before, and it was like, oh, have you seen the Fyre Festival documentary? And it was like, this is so good, and it was just like kind of, there was so many memes about this when it came out. It was just unbelievable. It was mainly about was it Andy King, the guy who was prepared to suck dick to get all the water for the festival.
That bit, wow, and I don't know about you, but when I saw that bit, and then he's telling the story of it, and he's like, I was prepared to go and suck dick to get the water, and then right at the end he's like, but I didn't, and I was like, really, really, yeah, it was that was quite a funny moment within the documentary.
Yeah, there was an advert that came out for Ryan Reynolds's I think it was his gin that he's got some gin company, and he did an advert saying how far he's prepared to go to make. He loved the gin so much that he made each bottle by hand. He's engraved every bottle, and he's like, I blew every single bottle of the gin, and he's like, I know how you can never go too far for a company or something like that. And then it kind of cuts to Andy in a bar saying, this guy knows. He says, I'll have some of that gin. I think what was it called? Avalon gin, I think it is. I don't know. It might not be a gin in the end, and it might just be like me kind of. But I'll correct it if it is. I'll put it in the notes. But
It does.
anyway,
It
we're
does feel that like with all the kind of like memes and things that came out from the Fyre festival, just being an absolute shit show. Like it does feel like a lot of the people have like capitalized upon it. Like like with him doing that, like he's able to laugh at himself.
yeah, yeah.
I imagine he's made money out of laughing at himself, like made the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and it's a good way to be because like that could have come out and he could have been, oh no, like embarrassed about that. But if you embrace it and just say, look, hey, I was prepared to go this far to make this all work and that, and I was trying to help out people, but it's yeah, I think it's a good nature to have to embrace that and embrace the memes when it comes to that
Yeah,
because he is loved. It's not like he's being completely laughed at. It's not like taking the piss out of him.
no,
It's
yeah, and
yeah,
you kind of like with or how I felt within the documentary is like you kind of feel for him a bit because he sees so much in Billy,
yeah,
and like he really he props him up, and he says, I've worked with him for years in different like ventures, and he's excellent. And then it all just sort of comes crashing down at the end, and you can see that he's disappointed, and he feels bad that he propped Billy up so much to others. Um, but yeah, so you don't hate him within this documentary.
I tell you what though, one I was just surprised about how it's it's the whole thing is based on that one image, was it, like, of them getting the supermodels on the island shooting the thing. It just feels kind of crazy because, like, when you look at the island, it looks quite small for what it is, and it kind of doesn't seem like on that island. I know that the original, like, so the thing started out as a way to promote the app, which
Yeah,
was a good idea. Like, it was a way of, yeah, hooking up so people can book artists for their parties, for their to make it more accessible, so you're not stuck trying to, like, go for a friend of a friend or someone
yeah.
on Instagram to
They called it in the documentary almost like an Uber for booking talent, didn't they?
yeah.
Like a service that just makes it easier.
And I think if they just stuck to that, it would have been great. It would have
Oh yeah,
it like, it just seemed kind of, they got too ahead of themselves, and it almost, you wouldn't even think it was about an app in the end. You just think, oh,
no,
it's about them putting on some kind of a really ambitious festival. And I feel like it kind of almost goes into, because his magnesis cards that he brought out, which was like almost like a black card, like to get you into exclusive parties and exclusive events and stuff, and like for
yeah,
gig tickets and that. It just seemed like they could. If I feel like if they would have made the festival, like if they scaled it down to make it even more exclusive, it just felt like it could have happened. I think it
yeah.
could have, even if it was just a day festival. They didn't have to be so ambitious to make it like a, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it was a day festival in the end. I just kind of assumed that with camping and stuff, it might be in a few days.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think if they would have scaled it down a bit, like invited more exclusive people, had like just celebs there or something for the day, and made it like a simple thing, it could have happened overall. I know that with, is it
It
Norman's?
was completely overly ambitious from the get go. I mean, it was
Yeah,
starting out. It was going to be on Pablo Escobar's private island,
yeah, yeah,
um, which looked stunning. The island looked stunning, but again, with the amount of people they were saying that were going to be there, you looked at that island and you just thought, how is that going to work? Like, how did they not see that not working? Like, but I think again, like with these people doing it, they were blinded by money, perhaps. Like that was their idea was on, well, what we can make out of this, and not on actual like how it will actually work, how how it will all actually come together. They had an idea and they ran with it, because it was this Billy McFarland, is it?
Yeah.
And Ja Rule. And yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, from the get-go, I can't understand why they couldn't see that it was not going to work.
It's because Billy was a hype guy. He was like kind of. I mean, I imagine having someone with that much infectious enthusiasm, he could get anybody on board. And you know, if someone's kind of telling you like, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have this, we're gonna have all this kind of crazy stuff, and you know, he's got that magnesis behind him as well, which you know, I guess people seen as it was working because they referenced that. Those parties were insane. They had like like amazing guests, and it looks like they kind of pulled that off. But like they didn't realize how much they weren't really making money at all, and there was like a lot of problems around that. But
Yeah.
it just feels like you know, like I imagine it was easy to hide all this stuff, and plus anybody who is like a naysayer like on this, like look, like my favorite thing is that Keith the pilot, he says like, oh, like basically we've got like this logistics problem. So he's just like, so he's literally a pilot they hired to go to the island. He's like advising them on the toilet situation, on like, oh, like logistically you wouldn't be able to fit that amount of people on this island. Like, you know, all these tents, you wouldn't be able to do it. And I don't know what they were thinking about the lodges and the cabins and stuff like that, because it was just like an empty island anyway. So it's like, it just felt like as soon as he brought this up and he was like, oh, you know, like the only way you can get around this is having like some cruise ships, which I think would have worked. But then he was like, oh, like, you know, you can have people who are like fucked out their face on drugs or on drinking and stuff, and them trying to get back and forth to a cruise ship in the middle of like the ocean.
I think they were going to use dinghies, like so. You know, that would have been an absolute recipe for disaster. There's no doubt about that. But I get the idea of having a cruise ship there, you know, like to basically house people. That would have been a better idea, but maybe not taking them in dinghies. Like I think that definitely would have been a recipe for disaster, and they could have been in trouble for a lot more stuff, like maybe death of quite a lot of people. But yeah, you see where that idea was. It was a good idea, but just maybe not, like most of it, not thought through well enough.
No.
I mean, and it was shot down in the end anyway, so you know it didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, especially with him, it seemed like he was finding out for the first time that they like basically kind of like shot down. Yeah, as you said, like shot down his idea, and he's like, "Oh, really? We're not going to get to the cruise ships?" And he's like, "No," and it was like, oh, "Okay, like game over." Also, another thing is they got this guy who was like what, only 22 23 years old, and got him to book like all the acts for the festival, and he had like no former like knowledge of how to do this. It's just crazy because they got the best of the best for the app, they said, and they got you know, all that side of things, and it just seems like it's literally, hey, all right, you, this guy I know, like you can work out logistics for, you know, the sewage situation, or you can work out I don't know, it just seemed kind of crazy, and like the lineup,
it was very amateur in the way it was structured, which just does not make sense, like especially when you look at the kind of promo videos that they were putting out for it, and again using all these like models and things to make it look like, you know, the biggest party ever. And you know, look at this promo video, this is this could be you, this is you on this island enjoying this beautiful island life on, you know, and seeing these amazing music acts and things like that. And again, it's just it kind of harks back to that whole social media thing of like things aren't always as good as they seem. Like like even with these influencers, like posting, oh, you know, all these amazing things, and people looking at this through the likes of Instagram and wishing their lives were like that, but behind the curtain, it's not always like that. It's a mask.
Yeah, I mean, well, they got like the supermodels. They had the pigs, like the little like yeah, because I remember there being a big thing about those pigs on the island. There was a big deal about how they would obviously only have these little pigs, and then like apparently I know that was it Peter, you know the PETA Peter,
Yeah,
they were like losing their minds about it because it is cruel having these pigs on this beach, and I think they just I don't know, what was it? I think they basically slaughter them when they get to like a certain age or something like that. I
yeah.
remember that being a thing that people were kicking off about, like when it came out and when I looked into it before. I need to, yeah, definitely. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Mm.
But it was just in I don't know, like they say in the documentary, the core team that were putting it together only had 6 to 8 weeks to put it all together.
Yeah,
Like, and I don't understand why it was happening so soon. They could have put it back a year because at this point I don't know if the app had even launched at
uh-huh.
this point. It just feels like why rush? Why the rush? They could have
I think all of that is down to Billy. Like
yeah
Billy, it seems he's one of these guys that has an idea, and he has to make it happen. Like it's not a case of, okay, maybe it won't work in the time frame that we've put it out there for. Therefore, we'll take a step back, take a bit more time with it. So therefore, it will happen the way we want it to happen. It's I've said it will happen, so therefore it will happen. Come rain or come shine, and obviously, in this case, it was come rain. Like it was just awful.
Well, I think I know that he was borrowing quite a lot of money from lots of different people, and it was like he had to pay back like silly amounts of money within like short amounts of time. It was like proper like robbing Peter to pay Paul,
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
kind of
mean,
thing. It's
it came out that he basically lied to pretty much all the investors.
mm,
Like so,
yeah.
in which he eventually got into quite a lot of trouble for.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised about that. I mean, I want to talk about that in a bit. The especially the post after the festival kind of thing, because there's a
Yeah,
bit that I just don't understand why he would do that. But we'll get to that in a bit. Um, I just think it's crazy that they promised the influencers for one post on their social media a
mm,
3 bedroom villa on the beach. It just seems
yeah,
like that's crazy. Like because and it's for free. It's for free as well. So and I don't know how many influencers were invited to the festival, but it seemed like a fair bit. It seemed like everybody on there was an influence, and the people who were what was it? What was it? I think it was like 4,000. Oh, okay, so Villa was $4,395 per person, and it
yeah,
was like a for like 2 to 8 people. So a minimum of you're paying like 8 grand for like this villa for like just a couple of days, and but then again it says it includes a round trip, flights and VIP tickets.
yeah.
But it's insane because and then they say like to put the money on the wristbands, which I've definitely had problems with that in the past when I've gone to festivals and stuff. I know that people when
They said that the network out there on the island was so bad that it wouldn't have been viable anyway.
yeah
So
they didn't have,
like people would have got there and they'd have been skinned.
mm.
Like they'd have had nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was for the band so much because it was kind of like those were like almost like contactless cards. But I know that there was no, I think, internet like there was there to like have to accept the payments
Yeah.
to But I don't know. I just don't understand like why promise all these things and not have it in the first place, or at least like under like have it for like the core people because I know that was it. Kendall Jenner getting paid. Did she get paid 250,000 to? Yeah, she did. To post that one post.
Yeah.
That pretty much launched the whole thing. There was that one post, and it was because of her post that there was like major strict laws that come in for influencers and social media personalities that they had to say whether or not a post was advertising,
Yeah.
like paid promotion,
Mhm.
because this, yeah, they completely screwed it on after that. I mean, it makes sense though because there's so much like hidden advertisement and
I mean, from what I get from the documentary, like I don't feel that Billy was ever in the thought process of coming through with half of these promises. I think he has that mindset of put it's like dangling the carrot, like put this out there for people to jump on board, and once they're in, they're in. They've paid their money, they're here. Like it's I don't have to come back on these promises after that because we'll show them a good time anyway. Which I imagine he did, because I don't think for a second he wanted the whole thing to fail. Um, he thought that I think up until the very end, he thought that they'd be able to salvage it in one way or another. But obviously, that really wasn't the case. It was an absolute clusterfuck.
I just don't understand it because there was like obviously like, all that rain and stuff the night or so before, and they could have just said, oh, due to weather situation, we've cancelled, last minute and stuff, and it could have been the whole
Yeah,
thing, and they could have pushed it back to a little bit later on, give them some more time. But then again, I guess at this point they had so much debt that it was payable like the moment the festival started, so
yeah.
they were too
I,
far
I,
in.
yeah, I think by that point there was no turning back. It,
No.
it was a case of, well, I've promised people all this, I've lent all this money. I have to pay that back, so therefore we have to go ahead. Like he was completely stuck between a rock and a hard place, but all of it due to his own doing, really. Like he'd created the mess that he was laying in.
Yeah. I just feel bad for the people of Exuma,
Yeah,
of Great Exuma. Like honestly, they're like working for like a month or so up to time, doing all this work, probably working like really really long days to make these structures, put up these tents.
yeah,
That restaurant owner of the Exuma Point restaurant, Marianne,
yeah.
she wow, she like ended up investing 50K of, well, not investing, she like had to pay out 50K of her own money that she had like just to fund the food and stuff for the people who turned up and that
Yeah,
and the
which was
people,
out of her own savings. Like that was like they cleared her out completely.
yeah,
Like
it was, yeah, disgusting. Like it's just, I don't know how they could like, it's, and then like was it the, because that was the main catering of the festival after a while, wasn't it? Because of I know that they had like this major catering thing planned, and they were meant to pay 6 million to sort it out, and they only had like the budget for 1 million, and
yeah,
then was it Andy was like left with just 2 weeks to come up with food service for 6,000. Oh, so it was 6,000 kids, yeah, who end up going, which is crazy because you think like how many of those actually paid to be there, and
yeah.
like it just feel that just seems insane. Oh, but I don't know. I mean, I love how the whole thing was kind of like just destroyed over a cheese sandwich.
Yeah, that post.
Oh,
And it is kind of the I think they even say within the documentary how it was these influencers who kind of got people on board by their posts, and then it took one post of this cheese sandwich to completely tear it down, and it's just amazing. Like the
uh,
power of social media, the power of the internet. Like
yeah, it's ugh, and it couldn't look more unappealing, could it? It's just like
right,
it's
it looked awful.
this bit of salad on the side. Oh, it's and that crappy American cheese. Oh, yeah. Do you find it really hard to be sympathetic for the influencers who went there? Because I was watching it and I was like, I understand they're in a shitty situation on this, but I just felt like, I don't know, a part of me, I'm like, it's kind of like, I just
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a grey area because you do feel bad for them to a degree, but then also
yeah.
like I don't know if you can feel bad for them either
I
because you
had mixed feelings about it myself. I
yeah
just like kind of I was watching it. I know that I should be feeling bad because these people obviously pay out all this money, or they may of well, I mean they paid out some money to get there, like or even paid put money on a card, and they I don't know had like a miserable time, and I'm just kind of I don't know. I found them really annoying. Like most
yeah
of the people in who were featured in that, I did find them like really annoying overall. And that one guy who just looked like he had his eyes full on open the whole thing when it was like he was screaming through his eyes, but like he was just talking normally. It was like yeah, I don't know. It made me feel like a terrible person for kind of thinking like because you kind of expected it to be like that as the documentary went on. You knew it was gonna be a clusterfuck when it got to it,
oh yeah
but
yeah completely and you kind of in that position where you'd like to think well like I wouldn't be fooled by such a thing like and it's kind of laughable that some of these people were
well, I mean, they had no reason to believe that it wasn't because if you look at all those pictures and that, they were like kind of, it looked prestigious. They were still using the pictures and that from the first photo shoot, and I mean, there was those the videos and the pictures and all the social media stuff that come out about like saying, "Oh, this is not going to be as great as it is." It's look at
yeah
all this. Like, is it? So I understand why. I mean, you just expect it to work out. You have no reason not to believe. All these models and all these influencers and stuff have posted about this. You think, oh wow, it's got to be legit. Like you wouldn't think. I don't know. You just wouldn't expect that, especially with how much it costs to go there and that, and especially like Ja Rule, like putting his like name on the line for that. I don't know. It's what
it
you.
looks like he's basically got off with everything scot free as well
Yeah, like it
like
feels like yeah, none
after
of
or like it's like his somehow he has some power to just be able to go oh well I wash my hands of that and I think he released a kind of mini statement saying that he was duped as well by Billy like yeah, he was duped he was hoodwinked um, and yeah I don't know it does seem strange that nothing really came of it for him like because from the get-go it appears that it's a partnership.
mm, I mean, it's yeah. It did seem like he was in the room for every major decision that was made. So I don't
Yeah,
understand. And he knew there was major problems with this and this and this, and he was like, "Yeah, just make it happen. Just make it happen." Like
yeah,
he. It just feels. How did he not know? He could have pulled out of this. He could like took his name off this, like a little
yeah.
while in. It's it's yeah ridiculous. Did you know that there was another documentary that was released at the same time called Fire Fraud, and it was released on Hulu? Um,
I I done a little bit of reading after watching the documentary, and I did see, but I didn't read into what the documentary covered, whether it was the same gist or what.
it more or less was, but
Yeah.
there's this thing where so basically the company that the social media company in the documentary that fuck Jerry,
Hmm.
they produced this documentary on Netflix, the Netflix one, and there's a lot of people say that it has a heavy bias towards them, and it kind of portrays them as the victims. They were taken for a ride, and they were like kind of the victims all together. But the argument that Fire Fraud presents is that they knew about this months before. They knew about the situation as it was going along, and they still posted day by day and stuff that this was hey, this is still going ahead, this is all good, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know that they were a company that were hired to do social media, but they couldn't just pull out and stuff
Yeah.
for the thing. Like it's it just feels yeah. Apparently the Netflix one is quite biased towards that. So,
Right.
but yeah, Fire Frauds on Hulu. Anyway, when was it? When Billy was getting interviewed as the festival was happening, and they're like, they just as they cancelled it and all that, he said, "V1 has failed." Like, as in, like, yep, that's version one of the festival. It hasn't worked out well, so we'll be all set for the next one. It's just like you knew for a fact that there's no way ahead like that was going to happen again.
No,
Um,
exactly. Is like we said before, is like he's a he's a hype guy, he's a yes man, he's a he won't admit defeat. Like
no,
he's one of those guys that he'll accentuate the positives if there are any, but he will just he's blind to any negativity to do with any of his ventures.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't. You could see him there at the festival, and he was like, obviously, it seems like people just moaning at him the whole time, obviously, because there was so much shit going on.
Uh-huh.
I don't
And
know.
he just, I think they say in one bit that he would just like take like a sort of quad bike or something and just drive off, and then come back and he'd be all like raring to go again. Like,
Yeah.
but like, things got tough. He ran away and then came back with what he thought were answers or solutions, but there were none.
Yeah, I like how there was like lots of shots of him kind of looking a bit like solemn and stuff on like a jet ski or that. It's like him looking like, yeah, I'm in deep in thought. I'm going to sort this out. Or I'm looking a bit sad.
I do wonder how a guy in that position that like would deal with the anxieties of like, because you're watching it all crumble before you, and even though like out loud he doesn't want to admit it, internally he must know what is going on and how much shit he is in. Like that must be a hell of a lot of anxiety to deal with. But again, he's a salesman. He puts on that face, he puts on that mask, and is able to make it seem although everything's okay. I imagine the type of guy he is, like even when it was going to shit and crumbling, in his head he's probably thinking of his next venture. What's next? Like after.
Well, I mean, yeah, you see that towards the end, don't you? Like that kind of thing. But we'll go into that in a bit. But do you reckon, if it wasn't for the storm and the rain that happened like the night or so before, and it all the stuff wasn't like soaking wet and it wasn't all just a complete washout, could you envision like a scenario where it actually went ahead and kind of turned out okay, but super lackluster in a way as well?
I think no matter what, I think storm or no storm, the people that went there and paid all that money would not have left happy. Right, because it was built on empty promises. So like everything that was promised was not adhered to. So no, I don't think it would have worked. It may have gone ahead.
It would have been ripped apart. It wouldn't have. There's no way like another festival would have been like even happened. I mean, then again, was it the guy who booked all the bands? He cancelled all the bands anyway, didn't he?
Yeah.
On the day. So that wasn't happening.
Yeah, I think it was a wildly dreamed up idea that just was like insanely poorly executed, which is why it didn't come to fruition. Like it was, I don't think it would have worked at all. Like with just in the way it was put together and planned, I think it was a pipe dream.
Yeah. So after the festival, there was a few things that was just crazy. Like, as in, after it all went down and there was like it was in the news and like there was a media storm about it. Then Ja Rule going on the record saying that we didn't defraud anybody. It's not fraud. It was just false advertising.
Yeah.
And also, I don't understand why Billy chose to film all of the ticket scam stuff. I don't understand why he seems so jet set on filming that, because it was a scam, and it did feel like he was just raising that money to pay back whatever he owed, like he had to pay for Fire Festival.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't understand what his long-term goal for that was.
Well, I kind of thought that throughout this whole documentary, I kind of wondered, like, is Billy himself gaining from this documentary? Because of there's so much footage, and I take it that some of the footage must have been his own. So I wondered if like the popularity of this documentary and it being sold to Netflix, whether any of that would go back to him.
Yeah, I don't know, because I know that after to pay for the lawsuits, because they got really, there was loads and loads of lawsuits after this
Yeah.
for for Ja Rule for some, and then like, but he was always kind of like, as you said, he kind of just disappeared in that sense.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't really stuck to him. Was that?
he flew under the radar. He was
Yeah,
it's like Ja Rule is untouchable.
yeah, it's hard. But he I don't know. There was like a thing that I was reading. It said that I think he settled out of court with like a lot of them and stuff. So there was like so he had his name struck from like the lawsuits on a few of them because he kind of dealt with it in his own way. Um, but I know that they sold merch for Fire Festival after like to fund the lawsuits and all that stuff. Which was I think it was quite a cool gimmick because it come out. I think the merch came out after the documentary came out, so there was a big hype around it. It was like, oh, this Fire Festival T-shirts, it's kind of recognizable as a complete disaster overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it said that Billy got like 6 years in federal prison and he got a lifetime ban on serving as like a corporate officer and the director of a company.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Did,
I don't know. I don't think he's going to come back in any way, but
well, I don't know if you've read. You probably have, but like I read that apparently last year he filed to be released from prison because of COVID.
yeah.
And yeah, so his lawyers were saying that his basically his immune system wasn't up to being in confinement with because apparently at this jail he's at this prison there were quite a lot of COVID cases. So he then tried to use that to get out of jail, and like his lawyers were saying, this guy isn't in prison for hurting people or anything like that. So he's not unsafe to be out on the streets. So therefore he should be released because of COVID, which to me is like a kind of grasping at straws, like because this man is obviously not made for prison. It's not in any form the lifestyle he's used to. So yeah, when I read that, like, I was like, wow, like.
Did he get out in the end? Because
No,
I know that he was in federal prison, but no, he didn't get out.
he's
No.
as of I think there was another thing last year that came out. I think the tail end of last year, where he got put into solitary confinement because he released a podcast. He released
From the prison.
Yep, he released a podcast, and I think it was like phone conversations, and it was going through like what happened with Fyre Festival, and for some reason after it, he was then put into solitary confinement.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I guess that was against the. I don't know. I guess that was like, was it recorded like without the permission of
yeah, I'm
the
guessing.
prison?
I don't know because I'm sure something I read, like I only read briefly, but it said I think it said he was put in solitary confinement for his own protection.
Oh.
So I don't know whether there was like things going on within the prison or what, but yeah, I found that quite interesting. Again, he was like this, even in prison, he's like got this entrepreneurial spirit of trying to release something it's just like, there comes a time where you've got to be like, okay, stop, like realize what you've done is wrong, pay for it, and yeah, like move forward with your life, but still he's trying to gain something more. yeah, I just found that quite interesting. Um,
Yeah, I need to look up and see if that podcast still exists.
yeah,
It might do. It was bound to be on the internet somewhere. So
yeah,
if I find it, I'll put it in the show notes.
yeah,
But yeah, and I see that Ja Rule released his own talent booking platform called Icon in the
yeah.
end. So it looks like they just pivoted to that in the end.
He was
And I remember. Go on.
sorry, when he released that, I think he released some tweets and things, or stuff on Instagram, sort of talking about Fyre Festival. Um, and I think he was trying to again like play like he was duped, he was the good guy, but apparently people just ripped into him online and started like really going into him on like his kind of his part of creating this absolute mess. And like I read some of them, and they're quite funny to read through because he just gets so defensive about it, and it was just, like that was
Yeah.
quite a funny reading some of them back.
Yeah, I know there's like a lot of things I've seen on Reddit, and when they're commenting about some kind of ridiculous situation or some kind of scam, like there's always some kind of thing where they say, "Oh, I suspect Ja Rule will be like involved in this somehow," or that kind of thing. It's I don't know. I just found it so random to see him in the doc because I remember like obviously his music back in the day. I don't know if he's still making music,
I'm sure.
where he's just like a an influencer or something now, but. Um, yeah, his name was recognizable to me, like
Yeah. The,
on the thing.
the lady, sorry, her name's slipping. But the
What are you on about? Marianne?
yeah,
Like
the one who lost like 50K.
yeah,
Yeah. She people apparently after the documentary, like because they felt so bad for her, they like I'm guessing they sort of gave to a Just Giving thing for her to sort of build her money back up.
yeah. I seen that it was like 200,000 they raised or something,
Yeah,
even just after
but
the
then
doc come out.
she nearly got scammed out of half of that as well. Apparently,
What?
yeah, by like apparently it was her friend who set it up for her, or supposed friend, and this friend tried to walk away with half the money that was raised.
Oh.
But from what I read, they didn't get away with it, so which is a good news story for her at least.
I do feel sorry for her overall because like she was like the major victim of this.
Oh,
I would say the victims of this documentary, the Great Exuma residents.
yeah, yeah.
It's just
the people
they work so hard.
They were the people who were putting the work in and trying to make it happen. But it was just directed so shoddily. Like the man hours that were put into creating this, and half of these people weren't paid correctly, and then they had people coming to them demanding money back from them. So it's disgusting.
It's like sick. It's sick in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's I I do feel really sorry for people. And what do you think about the phone call? Because at the end of the documentary, what's his name? I think it's his name JR or I can't remember his. I'm not too sure what his name was. The guy who is his contact on the island, and he said like was it Billy like rung him during the interview?
Yeah. And he was like, "Yeah, is
I just
anything you want me to say for you whilst they're filming me?"
yeah.
Yeah, that
I was surprised about that because I thought, what does that mean overall? Like, because at this point I assumed that he had no connection with Billy, and I don't understand why you'd still be talking to Billy if he essentially fucked you over completely.
Yeah, that kind of like when I saw that bit at the end, like kind of like brought a kind of air of mystery to the documentary, like which is why as well, like I wondered, is Billy gaining out of this documentary somehow?
Yeah. I know that he was meant to be interviewed, like do an interview for the Netflix doc, but he demanded something like 125,000 for the Netflix
Of course he
doc.
did. Yeah.
For a thing, and it was because he said that Hulu were paying him for the Fyre fraud documentary, 250K.
Right.
And there was a spokesman that came out in the end saying, "Look, like we didn't pay him 250K, because, but we did pay him, a fair bit and stuff."
Yeah. It's like that like from what you get from this documentary, that just speaks to his character though. Like the fact that he would then try and play these two documentaries against each other to gain out of them. Like it's.
I suppose that makes sense because, like, in terms of the reason why he was so obsessed with making so much footage is because it makes it more crazy. It makes it like a profitable doc in that sense. And like if he, if it becomes a major doc, then it's like he can sell. They can sell merchandise for this. I don't know if he paid off all his debts off the back of this, or I can't imagine so. I mean, like he's now in prison. I guess it's kind of like not happening.
No.
But I imagine he seemed to have like a lot of money still at the end, didn't he? Like he had like those hotels. I don't know if it's he knew people in high places. And what was with the Frank thing? Like that guy, they tried to make him the kind of. I think they put his name as because I imagine at this point Billy could not. Have any company or have anything with his name on it, so he was the face of the company.
Yeah, he was, I guess, in a way, the fall guy as well. Like we'll put his name on everything. Like because again, like especially after the absolute disaster of Fyre Festival, what investor is going to invest in Billy at that moment? Like, I can't see anyone like. Unless they're absolutely okay with losing their money.
Yeah, I don't see him coming back from that at all. I can't imagine him being able to do anything after this. But maybe he, I don't know, writes a book about it and recoups his money somehow from that. Like,
I really think that no matter what, he's the type of guy where he will probably find a way to gain out of this eventually in the long run. He comes across that type of guy, like he will not quit.
Yeah, I mean he knew for a fact when they were filming the scam and the ticket scam stuff that he was going to prison. He had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
At that point, he was just trying to maybe put some money aside. Maybe he's put it into an account for after. I don't know. It's a interesting one. I still question why they were filming, like why he was obsessed with filming that part. Like, it felt like it was kind of doomed at that point. So, but yeah, weird one. Anyway, I think that is it for the doc. I definitely have anything else more to talk about. Anything else you want to touch on? Like,
no, just like I did enjoy it. Like I went into it really not being sure whether I was going to enjoy this documentary, but it turned out really good. Fairly comical at parts, and just again very eye-opening, and just like to the likes of you and me, like a different world with these like influencers with all this money and just able to throw so much money at stuff. Just an eye-opening doc. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's a fun little documentary to watch. And I guess if you kind of watch it in tandem with the other doc that come out, you can get like a whole. I remember seeing an article and it said like it's you have a lot of knowledge about the overall thing, but you kind of don't really gain much from it in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was great overall, and I think that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, if you're still listening. And feel free to send us a message using the email in the show notes. You can contact us on the socials, all in the show notes again. And if you let us know what you thought of the doc, it'd be good to hear your feedback. Okay, anyway, thanks for listening. Bye.
Easy.
Bye. That is done.
Whoop.